Sonic the Hedgehog 3, directed by Jeff Flower and starring Ben Schwartz as Sonic and Keanu Reeves as Shadow, follows a sequel to the Sonic movies featuring Shadow when Sonic and Robotnik must team up to stop him. So I've had kind of a complicated relationship with the Sonic movies, being that all my opinions on it always seem to counteract popular opinion. I think the first film is good. It's not all that special, but it's a really fun road trip movie, and I just find it to be very enjoyable. And I hate the second film. I don't want to get into it in this video. I've just never liked it for several reasons, and I rewatched both films right before this movie, and my opinions are basically the exact same. 7 and then a 3. Okay, so off trailers, this movie honestly looked really good. I just think it seemed really cool, but you never know. I mean, I thought the second film looked good off the trailers. Keanu Reeves is clearly giving a great performance off his lines already, and I actually don't fully know Shadow's story, so it'll be cool to see what happens. I never really was a massive Sonic fan, so a lot of these adaptations I'm going in blind for. Anyways, I think this movie looks good, but I've been really disappointed by these films before, so who knows. I'll be back with my initial thoughts. Sonic 3 was surprisingly good, which is, I wasn't surprised. I thought it looked good. It's just, I'm very thankful for it, and it's probably the best one out of the three. As I get into this review, it's probably going to be a lot more positive than it is negative, but I feel like I have to give the context that I liked the film. It really didn't have a lot of issues for me, and I really don't have a lot to say overall, but it's not like I didn't feel too strongly about the really good stuff, and I barely felt any really negative feelings, but, overall, it's a good movie. So, yeah, I liked it. It's the best out of the three, and I'm gonna get into the full review. Yeah. Can you feel the light? To start off, this movie is definitely an improvement over the first two films in several ways. I like the original Sonic film, but it's definitely lower quality and is mostly just there for potential sequels. The second film sucks, again, not gonna get into it. This film has a pretty easy job overshadowing the first two in pretty much every regard. Off the bat, the film already has much more effort put into it visually. There's so much more thought and effort put into how these video game characters will look in a live action setting. The actors for the human characters from the previous films are doing a really good job too, since they've probably gotten used to it at this point. It's really easy to actually believe these video game characters are real, not only due to the pretty effective human acting, but also the visuals are so much better than the first two. This film's pacing is also super fast and entertaining, but it's not too fast like the second and not too slow like the first. The first movie is a road trip film, and it can drag at points along with the second's pacing, just kind of making everything important happen in its first 15 minutes, instead of dragging that stuff out, leading to the middle kind of feeling pointless. This movie, on the other hand, is constant in its pace. They do the same as the second by instantly throwing the main villain into the movie, but the movie just keeps going. The fast pace is totally deserved because so much stuff is happening throughout, way more than the other two. Jim Carrey is also giving his best roles so far in the trilogy. I mean, he's playing two characters now. Oh, and visually, this film's pushing boundaries much more. Like, I only realized this, but when the gang is trying to break into a government building, they showcase the plan really effectively visually, and it also gets the information across super well. Like, the other two films never actually do anything like this. The first Sonic is super small in scope and is very visually tame. The second movie is visually better, but has a massive issue of playing clips from the first to showcase info. And the third has to go back on the previous films a lot too. For example, they touch on Longclaw a lot more, but this film, instead of the second, with just playing clips from the first, Sonic, makes a drawing of her to showcase how he feels. It's just little things like this that make the movie come across as having a lot more effort put into it. The action in this film is also, really good. That first fight between Shadow and Sonic is super cool. Shadow uses a gun, and that's really cool. That massive final rematch between the two is also good. The stakes are crazy high now, and they go above and beyond with scale here. And the big final climax might go for a bit too long, but all around it's a really good fight. In general, despite maybe some of the battles here going too long, I think every battle is better than the first two. They all have at least something to make them stand apart. Overall, my favorite part of this film is Shadow. He definitely has some actual good elements, but he's mostly just a good vibes villain. He's just really cool. Despite this though, I think the stuff taken from the game and his actual relationship with the girl is good. That montage with them is really cool because of how it's shown visually, with a vinyl turning on and off. Again, just more good visuals to display info. There's even a cool twist with him later in the film that I won't spoil, but yeah, pretty much everything with him is really good. He's the best part about this film easily. Lastly, this movie is a pretty good step up in comedy too. Eggman is just pretty funny throughout the film. I also like the puns. There's a lot of them, and sometimes they're just so bad it kind of ends up being funny. And yeah, Eggman, he's funny in the movie. God, this review is gonna be short. I really don't have a lot to say. As said before, Shadow is really good in this movie, but probably my biggest issue is that he's just not in it enough. He really isn't the main villain for this movie. Maybe this isn't the reason why, but it's probably because he's stronger than like every other character by a lot. So I think they just used him less so he could remain as a massive threat that can't be stopped till the very end. But I don't know, just give him more stuff to do so he doesn't always seem like a threat would be like my suggestion. I also kind of wish this movie had a more gradual arc for him. He's just very underused in this movie and is often ignored in favor of Eggman. And I mean, this older Eggman is good, but you know, he's just Eggman again, but with sometimes different motivations. And Eggman has already been a villain for 2 Sonic films, so I think you should just give the main role to Shadow at this point. I don't know, it just sucks how underused he was here. Overall, this is a very good film. I don't have any real gripes with it, but I also don't think it has any major highs. Overall, this film is just very fun and very good, pretty much all around. Favorite aspect is Shadow probably, and I guess the worst aspect was not enough Shadow. This is a very Shadow review. And yeah, so I'm gonna give Sonic 3 a high 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and this is an epic outro.